welcome back. As we promised earlier, we are going to talk today about the Egyptian-Russian relations after the visit by the Russian President Vladimir Putin to Egypt, where he held talks with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. The Russian president did leave yesterday after a two-day visit through which he discussed with the Egyptian president many topics of mutual interest and bilateral relations. And to shed more light on this visit, we are very delighted to have our dear guest, Ambassador Hussein Hareidi, the former assistant to the foreign minister. Hello, Mr. Ambassador, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you very much, of course, for joining us. Always a pleasure, Mr. Ambassador. And it's very important to know your opinion on the developments that took place between the Egyptian and the Russian counterpart in this rather significant visit.
I think the visit by President Vladimir Putin was a successful one. This is his second visit to Cairo in 10 years. The first one was in April 2005. But many things have changed ever since, not only in Egypt, but in the Arab world and in the world at large. And I guess this visit to Cairo comes in the wake of the visit that, the working visit that President Sisi paid to Sochi in Russia last August. And before the August visit, there were two important visits between Moscow and Cairo in the framework of 2+2, a policy adopted by Russia with the countries with whom the Russian government would like to have closer relations. In this context, both the foreign and defense ministers of Russia had visited Egypt in November 2013, and in February 2014, the two former defense and foreign ministers of Egypt went to Moscow to return the previous visit. And so the visit of President Putin to Cairo in the last few days is a culmination of this series of visits between the two countries, high-level visits between the two countries. And this is the reason why I think this visit heralds a new chapter in the relations between the two countries. There were significant agreements signed yesterday, and we all followed the press conference held by the two presidents. And I guess the two sides, the two governments, see eye to eye almost on all the questions that had been discussed during their talks yesterday morning. As far as bilateral relations are concerned, I guess they are now on a very solid footing. And we should expect major developments in the future. And I guess there is agreement between the two governments to boost cooperation, bilateral cooperation between the two countries in almost every sphere, whether in the military, the political, the economic, investment, energy. And one thing that stands in this visit is the fact that we signed, the two sides signed, a memorandum of agreement on the establishment of the first Egyptian nuclear power plant. And of course, according to what President Putin said yesterday, the two sides would finalize the agreement. He referred to the training of Egyptian experts and conducting scientific studies. So I guess this is the most outstanding result of the visit. And as he said, once we have this power plant, nuclear power plant, I guess that would be a tremendous boost to the Egyptian economy and to Egypt as well, and it would empower us to really meet our growing demands in terms of energy, which has become a serious challenge facing not only the government but the Egyptian people. So I guess this visit should be considered a watershed in the bilateral relations between Moscow and Cairo. Having said that, let me just speak a little bit about the history of this relationship. What we have seen yesterday, from a common will to boost relations in all fields, is based on the history, the rich history of bilateral relations between Egypt and the former Soviet Union in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s of last century. And this cooperation at the time empowered Egypt militarily, economically, and we all, of course, there is a testimony of this cooperation in the High Dam. And when we say the High Dam, when we talk about the High Dam, we should not fail to mention the electrification, the major electrification of Egypt that came with the construction of the High Dam. You have grown up, when I say your generation and other generations who were born probably in the mid-70s or the mid-80s, and you take for granted the electric grid as it stands today. But back in the 50s and the 60s, things were not like that. And many villages were short of electricity. And so with the construction of the dam, we were in a position to provide electricity to almost all villages, all across Egypt. So when we speak about Russian-Egyptian relations, we have to take all the history, the rich history of these relations into consideration. One other, something else which is very important for my generation, is the public sector. Russia, or the former Soviet Union, helped us in establishing a very strong and varied industrial base in the country. And when President Sisi paid a working visit to Sochi last August, there was an agreement that Russia would help us modernize what's left of the public sector, particularly the steel mills of Helwan and the aluminum complex at Naga Hammadi in Upper Egypt. And so, just to give you an idea of the how important the public sector was for the Egyptian economy, according to a recent report, the World Bank estimated the value of the public sector at, and don't be surprised by the figure, at $1.4 trillion US. Just
1 trillion.
1 trillion and 400 billion US dollars. If we today, that's equivalent of almost the national debt of Egypt, which is almost 2 trillion Egyptian pounds. So just to give you an idea of the major assistance that the former Soviet Union provided Egypt with, without strings attached, and that's something else that we should dwell on. all the Soviet assistance was without any conditions. And throughout the relations from 1955 till, let's say, 1979, I don't recall that Moscow demanded anything that Egypt could not respond to. And they never intervened in our domestic affairs. They respected our independence. They respected our sovereignty, and that's why, and that probably explains a phrase that President Putin used yesterday when he said Egypt should feel assured to rely on Russia as a friend, as a secured friend. What he meant by that is that we are going to respect your sovereignty, we are going to respect your choices, and in the meantime we are going to boost our cooperation with you, and we are going to provide you with everything that would empower you to advance economically and to provide for more political security and more economic prosperity for the Egyptian people.
Mr. Ambassador, do you believe that is there especially importance for the establishment of a free trade zone between Egypt and Russia in the coming period?
Well, yes. Yesterday, President Putin said that the most important part in the negotiations that he held with President Sisi was economic relations. And President Sisi himself referred to that, to what you have just raised in the press conference, in the joint press conference yesterday, that the two governments would work on the establishment